Greetings wherever you are in this mighty universe. My name is Kaya Nyambi Shivers, and welcome to Ark Republic News. Today on the podcast, we have a co-host. I have a co-host that usually I am speaking with him, but Mr. Dane Crawford, what's up?
What's going on? Good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for bringing this guest who we've already interviewed, Lieutenant Sidra Sherrod-Strong. Good evening. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm good, ma'am. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much. Thank you for one. I said this in the email, but I definitely will say this publicly. Thank you for trusting Ark Republic for telling your story. You could have gone a lot of places, especially now since there's a lot of news generating about LA County sheriffs and the corruption and the things that are going on. So thank you so much for trusting in us.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right. So why are we here? Well, Lieutenant Sherrod-Strong, can we call you CC in this interview?
You absolutely can. And I looked and I said, you know what? I have it as CC Strong, so feel free to call me CC, and that makes it easier. So you don't have to keep saying the title thing. We're good.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is so classic. You know, in my family, they call me Kai Kai. I mean, this is the CC, Kai Kai, Lay. Okay. So, but thank you so much for talking with us. We spoke to CC Sherrod-Strong about her, one, being the wife of a candidate who's currently running for LA County Sheriff, Mr. Eric Strong, who actually is a very viable contender, has always been a viable contender. And in particular, people are beginning to pay more attention to him in light of all of the allegations that have emerged around Villanueva, who is the current sheriff, and also the bad practices that have been going on in general at LA County sheriffs. And so in the channels that I speak to in Los Angeles, we know that there's all these, there's a dirty sheriff and we're not going to vote for him. And these other candidates are looking, so who is it that we go to? So it's so now it is the race has tightened up. So then we also talked to CC about her experience, because she actually is the first whistleblower to talk about Sheriff Villanueva's bad practices and bad behaviors and what he did to her and her husband, as well as what happens to her years later while she's running the food, I don't know the proper term, but the food facility unit that's part of LA County. You could give it's like food services.
Food services unit, yes.
Food services unit. However, got an email from CC saying, now that more people are coming forward and talking about the issue, I think it's appropriate that I begin to name the names and give more details. In addition to that, she has a documentary that she currently is. Are you still taping it?
I've done part one of a 2-part series. So I completed part 1. Yes. Okay.
Because unfortunately, in a lot of spaces, Black women in particular often are either silenced or their stories are disregarded. And so she took it upon herself to tell her story. And I tell, every time I'm consulted as a media person, one of the things I always say is document every step of the way. And so I'm glad that you are able to document yourself. So now that we are here, let's get down to this conversation. So before we talk, is there any kind of comments you want to make before we get into what we're going to talk about?
I think you touched on it. I will just clarify one piece, in that I did the trailer initially back in December on the 13th. And the reason for that was, I want to say kind of a shock, kind of a wow. All of it came out of the blue. And then the naming of the names part was always a part of the script. Mm-hmm. I just didn't get a chance to put pen to paper and map it out exactly the way that it was. But I found it interesting that there was a piece on Fox 11 News, and then it just kind of went away. And then everything that happened with the force, and then you had whistleblower after whistleblower after whistleblower. I'm not going to fight for that title because they look at it such a negative anyway. But but there were so many people coming forward. And I said, wow, you know, and I said something in December, but we'll see how it plays out.
And the name of her documentary is She Made the Call. We had in our conversation, because I've been speaking to people in Los Angeles, and when I tell them, you know, I've been speaking to the first whistleblower, Villanueva, and they're like, oh, and they name all these people. I'm like, no, her name is Sidra Sherrod-Strong. They're like, I've never heard of her. And I said, this is very interesting how narratives get changed, right? And so it's now as if you are left out of the conversation, the person that kicked it off. Can you first tell me, why do you think that that's happening to you?
Well, I think all of it is connected to the past with Alex. Obviously, he's not going to highlight it. I believe that my voice in and of itself, standalone, is not going to be readily observed or heard. There are two other Black women who are of rank who are now a part of that group, but they came after the fact. Mm-hmm. So I think the first whistleblower came along, and then it was just a ripple effect of the same incident. Mm-hmm. Mine has nothing to do with what happened with that particular case. However, I was placed under investigation and transferred unexpectedly, just completely out of the blue, back in October of last year. And then I did the trailer piece in December of the same year.
And when those who are listening, when she says Alex, that's Alex Villanueva.
Yes.
So I probably will say Villanueva, she'll probably say Alex, but it's the same person. So I'm particularly, can you please give me, in terms of demographics, we might have said this, what is the racial and gender demographics layout of LA County Sheriffs?
I believe the numbers right now are forsworn 50-ish%. I think the last I heard was 53% Latino. And then you basically look at everything else is the rest of the percentages. I know the last numbers that I saw for African-American was 7%.
Is the next largest racial group white after Latino?
Yes.
Right.
For within the sheriff's department, yes. Currently, it is largest with the Latino officers.
Okay. All right. Okay. So and as well, recently there was a commission, an oversight commission, that had its first meeting questioning deputy members in LA County and others about, maybe it was just the police officers at the one that I saw, about their experiences in LA County, the gangs that are in, the deputy gangs that are in the LA County sheriffs, the behaviors, the things that they do, as well as the police, the abuses, not police, the abuses. You saw that. And what, did it strike a nerve? It struck a nerve for me. What did it do for you?
I think that, and I hate to downplay it, the best way I can describe it is that when you know that things are happening and you're in your circle of influence and you're making sure that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, it's less prominent and in your face, but it's known. And then being a woman and also being Black, I'm not really exposed to that arena. I'm not going to be invited to be a part of it. No one's going to actually come and talk and say, hey, you know, we want to invite you to this gathering or that gathering. So it's not something that I'm going to be let into. So knowing that, I'm less shocked, more, wow, so stuff is finally coming out, if that makes any kind of sense. So it's shocking to people that don't know and haven't been on the department, but not necessarily for me.
Right, because, you know, most of it detailed officers abusing other officers. It was only at the tail end where community members were admitted to talk about their experiences of harassment, abuse, and allegations of murders by these deputy gang members. But for me, that was a wow, to the extent in which it happens, which leads to my next question. I mean, even though it has not in that capacity happened to you in this way, you've had your experiences. How did Why did you stay and how did you survive? Because you've been in there for 26 years?
This is my 27th next, we're not in June. Yeah, we're in June. So next month, 27 years.
Okay.
But when you say, how do you stay? I think because, again, I have to go back to some of the places I worked, some of the outreach that I was able to touch, some of the changes that I could actually impact. Yes, there's things going on, but if you're not involved with them directly, I was a drill instructor. So for 5 years, I was able to touch the people coming into the academy for the first time. People will lead you to believe that, oh, okay, well, they come into the academy and you start corrupting them right then and there. That's not the case. They leave there ready to do the courage, the wisdom, the fairness, the being an upstanding officer. Somewhere along the line that gets tainted. How did I stay? Because at each location that I worked, I made it a point to make it better than when I left.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, I shudder to think what it would be like if I wasn't able to be a part of that whole overall process.
Mm-hmm.
It has not been easy. This is not the first time I've reported something, but I have been able to make an impact. And for me, that's important.
Okay, so let's get down to what happens to you. So let's talk about 17 years ago. You brought it up, but 17 years ago, you were targeted by the current sheriff, Alex Villanueva. Please, and your husband. Was he then your husband?
No.
Okay.
He was not.
Your bae? But that's
no.
Okay.
No, he was my partner.
I'm all in the business. Okay.
Yeah,
so he was your partner. Please detail this incident.
Well, there were several incidents.
Okay.
Alex Villanueva came in behind another sergeant who came in as a result of being transferred from a unit into that position. He wasn't very happy with it because of being transferred in. So it was kind of, I'll come here, I'm going to work out, I'm going to study for the lieutenant's exam to get to the next bump up. And I was doing the work of the sergeant, which was a grant. I tried to give this grant over to the sergeant where it rightfully belonged because I have my own duties as a deputy, and he did not want that. He wanted me to do the work, send it to him, and then he would put his name on it and send it forward. When I refused to do that, there was a lot of animosity there. After about a year.
And this is Villanueva.
This is
the first sergeant, another sergeant. Okay.
This is the sergeant prior to Villanueva. So about a year later, and we've been going through this, I think he was there probably a little under a year. The captain and operations were basically, I'm letting them know this is exhausting. You know, you're doing the work of two people. After a while, it doesn't feel good. I vaguely remember them calling him to try to confirm what I was saying. Like, if he knows this, then he's doing his work. And it didn't pan out. So they said, now it's time for you to go. You were going to go back over to the station side where he's working out in the field.
What do you mean by it didn't pan out? And can you name the officer's name? What's the officer's name?
The sergeant's name was Myron Johnson.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So they talked to the upper echelon, talked to Myron Johnson, so to get his side, and it did not pan out. Is that?
No, I reported and was tired of doing his work.
Okay.
So me basically letting them know this is exhausting because you're doing more than, you're doing your work and in essence, your supervisor's work.
Okay.
There came a point where he was questioned about, like, you have to know these certain things to understand this grant. If I call and ask a question and you don't have the answer, it's apparent that you have nothing to do with this particular assignment. There was something to that effect for them to kind of confirm, let's see what he knows. Because his story, mine, I wouldn't think that they would just believe me. Once they did whatever they needed to do, they realized, no, it's probably time to get him out of there. So he ends up transferring, and they kind of gave him a soft landing, as they say. They say, hey, you've been here a long enough time where there may have been a turnover at the station. Nobody's going to remember or know that you were transferred in under not so good into that position in the first place. Behind him comes Alex Villanueva. Okay. They know each other. They had worked together before. So Alex gave Eric and I no chance, no opportunity to, okay, let me sit back and see what they do. I try to present that same grant to him as this is your work. This is what the sergeant does. And he wants me to do the same thing. Fill it out, give it to him, he turns it in, and he got upset about it a couple of times.
Because you refused to do it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes. If I'm going to do the work, I'm sending it on. There was a point where he said he wanted a project that, you know, I'm going to separate you and Eric from working together. You're the problem children, basically, in his mind. So you consider a unit that had 3 programs, and Eric and I added 9 more programs to this unit. It's a lot of work, but he wanted us to do a PowerPoint showing how to improve the YAL. And it's like, if you
YAO, what's YAO?
The Youth Activity League.
Okay, so in this office, you are working with youth. This is a program centered on youth.
Yes.
Okay, Eric had already been in the program when you transferred in, or did he come after you?
No, we came there together. They had a job fair that actually shook up a unit that we were in, which was another program that was for youth. And that's how we ended up actually at this program. One day I'm working, I am getting ready to go home, and I go into the copy machine or the copy room, and I make copies. Everything kind of feeds out, and my thing I'd walk back to my desk because I had a little pass-through door that went right to the copy room. So I would start the copy machine, go sit down, do something else, and I'm loading up to get ready to go home. When I go back into the copy room, I scoop up the papers, I put them in an envelope, I go and do whatever it is that I'm gonna do, and I'm heading on out. When I reviewed what I had printed, along with that was a memo from Alex to the captain. The memo maps out basically that Eric and I are, you know, the problem children of the unit, and we're just doing all this damage. And in his opinion, he had these bulleted points of things that we were alleged to have done. Mm. When I took that and reported it, because that was slanderous to my name, I'm like, this isn't true. First of all, we're the only ones doing programs at the youth center. So I don't understand why he would write this. And you haven't come to me and sat me down and given me this great training. You haven't talked to me and said, I'm your supervisor. I see you doing something wrong. So this is something we're going to work on. Long story short, I end up learning from the lieutenant. They actually emailed him back in response to this particular memo. In the email, the lieutenant breaks down that on behalf of the captain, he is not seeing all this stuff that Alex is claiming.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Sidra and Eric are the ones putting together the programs. Whenever he's over there visiting, he sees us being active, and you can't dispute 9 programs added to a 3-program unit, period. You cannot dispute that. So there's an email exchange back and forth, and in essence, Alex gets shut down, basically saying this is not adding up. Alex returns in an email and says, basically, they say, what did you do as a sergeant? And he maps out, negating his own original memo. Well, they did tell me where they were supposed to be. They did debrief me. It was just like, you threw something out there just to see if it would stick.
Mm-hmm. This is very similar to the Oversight Commission, this practice of where officers higher up will muddy the reputation of other officers and make this trail of unjustified and unclaimed, you know, issues about the officer. It's very similar to what they were saying. Did that resonate with you?
Yes, and realistically, that's kind of what I'm going through now.
Okay.
Going on with me now.
Okay. Okay.
But with that particular thing, he was our sergeant. So the first line of actual official supervisor. There is a 2-striper, which is considered bonus, but then the sergeant is for the most part, the meat and potatoes of supervision. Okay. That's your first go-to that you're going to bounce things off of as a deputy. He's going to be actually overseeing your work, that type of thing. So the memo was the first thing. The email reply kind of negated that. That didn't work. We had a force incident that June. So Alex got to the YL in February. This memo is actually done in April. Now May, and then we go to June. There's a force incident. Eric and I go out because of an incident that takes place. What is a forced incident? I don't know that. Well, I shouldn't say it as a forced incident without explaining what that is. A young girl snatched a woman's purse. Okay. She's able to come in and say, those are the people that stole my purse. We actually encounter these 2 people. One of the girls says, yeah, I'll get in the car. The other one, you know, she wants to actually wiggle and, you know, I'm not going, that kind of thing. So at minimum, it was struggling to get her hands behind her back, get her
Okay.
covered.
Okay.
We call for a sergeant on the radio, and lo and behold, who shows up? Myron Johnson, who's now been transferred from our unit back to working in the field. He shows up. We explain to him what happened. He says, there was no force. You weren't here. So we document the incident. I put it in an envelope, put it in his mailbox, but we didn't trust it. So I said, hey, we need to document this. And we did a narrative in an email form and sent that in as well. We sent it also to Alex, our current sergeant, because he wasn't there that day. Long story short, he reads it. There's a read receipt on it the very next morning. We hear nothing else back about the force. That next month in July, we're taking a group of kids to Florida. There were 4 children. We were going to take them for the Police Activities League for an event. We get all the way to Florida, and a sergeant from LASD canceled the trip. So the PAL director, Police Activities League director, says, hey, you know, like, hey, how you guys doing? Why are you here? And we're like, because of the program. He says, no, a Sergeant Alex Villanueva canceled this trip for LASD.
So you were already in Florida and the trip had been canceled? Okay. How do you navigate that? Does that mean they snatch all the money, all the funds?
No, what happened is he called and canceled. So we ended up calling the operations again and saying, hey, we're all the way out here. We were supposed to be on a trip. The PAL director just told us Alex Villanueva canceled this trip. He just called ahead and canceled it. It's malicious. I can't give you like the why. I mean, he would have to say that, but he called ahead and
I guess my question is that what do you mean? What facet of the trip does he cancel if you already are in Florida?
Our flights weren't canceled. Our registration was canceled.
Okay.
So if a sergeant called and said, hey, our department is not participating, we're no longer going to be participating, pull us off of the registration list.
Okay.
He canceled that part, but he didn't tell us that.
Okay.
It was intentional. We went all the way there and we got there, and that's the only thing I know. We get there and they say, your trip's been canceled. You aren't registered. We call, and the operations lieutenant, we're able to get a hold of him, and he gets us re-registered. And when we came back from that trip, Alex had been transferred out.
Oh, so it was like, before I leave, I'm going to do something, or oops, I did something and let me leave.
I think because of what he did, he was transferred immediately.
Wow.
Out of his position and over to Carson Station.
No demotion, just transferred.
He was transferred out. Yes.
Okay. All
there
right.
were also some other things that I would learn later in reading his own lawsuit, because Alex would always claim that he was being discriminated against for being Latino.
Against you.
For him, he was being discriminated. So he would say, like, they're discriminating against me because I'm Latino. I'm trying to get these, you know, specialized job positions. They're passing over me. I'm always at the top of the testing. This is per him. I don't know if that to be true, but that was his mindset. He was angry because he was thinking he was being mistreated for being Latino, but you're turning around and doing similar to someone else of another race. So he gets transferred out. I'm sure he's very bitter, but I didn't ask you to cancel a trip. I didn't ask you to leave a memo on the copy machine because it's your memo. You know, I'm sorry, maybe it got jammed and then you forgot you hit it twice, but I have the full complete memo of you flaming on me and trying to get me transferred out.
So I have a question. Right. So do you think that what he did to you and Eric was racially motivated?
I believe that it was racially motivated, but here's the key. It wasn't just because I'm Black. It was because he's already thinking he's being done wrong for being Latino. So here we go again. It was a position he wanted. And first, as he described it, it was given to a Caucasian male. And then the second time around, when he tried to get it again, it was given to a lesser qualified African-American woman. He was hung up on race within his head. So was it just flaming toward me because of my race? I can't say that. However, now hearing a lot of the stuff that you're hearing in the news, and in my documentary, I speak to this. Gustavo Arellano of LA Times speaks about it specifically. They even have a clip that says that he's not even apologizing for what he said. And at no point did I hear him say that. There's at one point in the video where he says, young Black men are dying at the hands of young Black men at a high rate. That has nothing to do with law enforcement. I don't know what planet he was on when he was thinking and saying that, but if they are dying and there's a death at the hands of another, sounds like a homicide to me, or a murder. How is that not having anything to do with law enforcement? So circling back, was it racially motivated? Yes, but with all that other stuff underlying. He thought he was being done wrong as a Latino, so now he's gonna step on me, I guess, because here we go again. Maybe in his mind, a lesser qualified African-American woman, which is in his own lawsuit.
So at what point, you spoke about this, there was a claim by Villanueva in the debates between the county sheriff debates. He accused that Eric Strong, your husband, was involved in some incident where he ran away from gunfire. Was this during this time that Villanueva was your, was it sergeant at the time?
Well, first of all, we'd have to ask him was what during that time, because he made it up. But he's claiming that it
happened during this time. Okay, so can you just retell that incident again? Oh, his lie, the lie.
The incident didn't, and what happened was, and I'll fill this in just really quickly.
Right.
We put a pin in the part about, and he gets transferred out. Well, close to a year later, I don't remember the exact month, he wrote another memo and said that we had failed to report the force from the year prior. So the force incident with Myron, where he said no force, that we put in the mailbox, that I sent an email for, he said, these two people had a force incident last year and they didn't report it. And we had a read receipt with his name and the date and time he read it. And that's what saved the two of us. If you think he's not upset that his memo was left on the copy machine, that he called ahead and canceled a trip with us and some kids on it and got in trouble for it and transferred, that he now claims that we failed a force and we had proof that you're lying. If you think he's not upset, I understand why he is, but all of that is at his own hand. When you fast forward to the incident you're speaking about, they were on CBS and KCAL 9. I believe they are now merged. So Ross Palumbo and Pat Harvey were moderating the candidate forum. Pat Harvey asked my husband, she says, you have a history with the current sheriff, and particularly with your wife and her being a whistleblower. Can you speak to that and then tell us why we should vote for you? So Eric kind of gave a brief overview of what I just shared with you. And he said that he knows who Alex is. This has been him from years and years back. When Alex came on, he fabricated this school shooting and said that Eric said, that's not my job, and refused to respond. Eric's return to that was, hey, I've run toward gunfire more than you've probably ever experienced. And if anyone's watching that video, in his face, you could see he didn't have he's always biting back on the forums. He's always having a smart remark. He had nothing to say because he had made it up. It didn't happen.
So Villanueva leaves the unit, in the youth unit that you and Eric work in. What is the next incident? Because it's not just Villanueva that you are encountering in your career. What is the next major incident that clearly shows that there is possibly discrimination, definitely people who do not like you and are trying to use, some type of their influence in order to put out your light, to stamp out your light?
The very next one after his transfer was the year later, and trying to get us placed under investigation, and the email. In more recent times, I was placed under investigation and transferred out of my unit as the unit commander for food services. It was unexpected, out of the blue, and it came from my supervisor, who I counted it up. I think we were in the same room in a year's time, maybe 9 times, 3 of which where we sat and talked one-on-one. So there were very few times that we had any interaction, and she was for the most part absentee. Her position is commander. I'm a lieutenant, but I was sitting in a chair of somewhat acting captain. And I say somewhat because it's very well understood that position, a unit commander position, is usually captain. But for food services, it's always been lieutenant since they've had sworn at the unit. So she had been absentee, came in nice, sweet, because we worked together before. She knows me, she knows my work. And at a pivotal moment, somewhere around the end of July, maybe June-ish, July, I saw a turn in nitpicking little things that I was doing.
So you already are working at food services. Had
Yes.
you already made the complaint that you discovered that rotten food was being served to the inmates?
No, that didn't come until later, but I had complained on our top professional staff, manager of food services. So there's me, there was a sergeant, then there's a manager of food services, and then everything kind of branches off from there. He was struggling in his position for about 1.5 years. I was holding his hand in various stages because there's a 6-month probation period. He wasn't cutting it, so I contacted advocacy and said, okay, he's not panning out. Can we extend his probation? No, we can't. So I put him on a 3-month program to hold his hand and kind of like, we're going to baby step this in. He wasn't cutting it. I put him on a 5-month program. And this one he signed and agreed to, and he still wasn't cutting it. That was by December 2019. And now we're rolling into COVID. I don't have time to train him anymore. And I'm reporting this along the way to my 7 total supervisors in that time frame that Alex was there. His incompetence was what was used. This is me thinking. Suddenly I am harming him in some way. Everything I present to my supervisor, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go forward with another program. I was going to try another program for him. And because she's not supporting me in doing my job, I then sent her an email and said, these are some things that I need to speak with you about, I'm concerned with. The first of which, her lack of support with me. So that was documented. I'm sure that upset her. I go to the chief because I can no longer get through to her. So I go my next step. I end up having a conversation with the chief, and I'm planning to have a meeting with them both.
Well, was it your request or your suggestion that they move this person up, or what was it that you requested?
I was requesting to try yet a third, but now putting him officially on what's called unit performance mentoring.
Okay.
He was fine with it in May. At the end of May, she's like, yeah, he's not cutting it. And this is, all in agreement with it, May of 2021. By July of 2021, something changed. And now it's everything is nitpicking, everything that I do. I'm being too harsh on him. Well, you need this is behind and you need to be focusing over here. It's like shiny ball, look over here and not over here. I request to meet with her and she projects it out a month when she'd be able to meet with me. When I sent the email saying, this is what I want to discuss. That meeting got changed 2 more times and I was done. In the middle of that, she was on vacation. It was mid-September, September 15th, my sergeant comes into my office and tosses the package of bread on my desk. It's green, it's furry, it's molded. I glance at it, I keep typing, and I said, what's that? She said, you're not gonna be happy. I said, why? And now he got my full attention, like what happened? This was served to the inmates up north. What inmates? All of them. So I start doing my asking questions, and lo and behold, like I have been dealing with for the past 3 years with this same gentleman, there's always an excuse. There's always somebody else's fault. There's always, well, this person should have done it. You are in charge at the very top of the professional staff.
And this gentleman is who? What is this gentleman?
Dale Turner. is
Dale
his name.
Turner. Okay, okay.
Yes, he's the current manager of food services.
Right now, he's the current manager of food services, the one who could not get it right. Okay,
Yes,
all right.
absolutely. I have also had outreach by his previous work assignment before the sheriff's department. He worked at probation. I am getting information now that this is not the first time spoiled food was served to inmates, but back then it was juveniles, which is, you know, all of it's bad. But I'm getting information and gathering information about that as well. She tosses the bread. I start asking questions, and it goes full circle to Dale coming to my office and admitting that he knew about what happened with bread on that Monday, but it got served that Tuesday and Wednesday. So,
And what was his response to knowing that rotten food was being served?
it's just kind of like, well, yeah, I knew about this, but, and he points at the guy sitting in the front of my seat who is one level down for him. Well, the guys up north, you know, they should have taken care. He takes no responsibility for anything that he does wrong. The only thing I can describe for you is someone who wears a suit, shakes hands, smiles a lot, and plays the role. And shame on me for saying I want to help someone. So I come up with one program and then, okay, let me try it again. And I come up with another one. And then when I finally go, we're going to do a formal one, I'm first supported and then suddenly I'm not. The nexus to this is by the time I meet with the chief, it's not only the information with the bread that came a little bit later with the chief per se. I had met with the chief the day before I found out about the bread, but I was there to meet with her about my commander because she was not supporting me.
And the chief is who?
Her name is Margarita Velasquez.
Okay.
And I met with her and she was very understanding, very supportive. And she spoke to almost understanding exactly what I was going through because she was having problem with my supervisor who she supervises.
Interesting.
So a lot of the things pointed toward me. She was kind of like, wow, it's interesting that she's asking you those type of questions when I can't get her to do what she's supposed to do. So she suggests, hey, let's meet the three of us. Are you willing to do that? I said, absolutely, because I don't know where else to go now. If I'm not going to get support by my supervisor and I'm doing most of this guy's work and giving it to other people to complete just to try to figure a way to get to him to do what he's supposed to, I'm done. I'm like, okay, chief, here you go. I've tried it with the commander. She's not supporting me in this. What do I do next? So she says, we'll meet together. I said, okay, well, I'll at least go to the meeting that she has set already for the 27th of September. I'm going to be, you know, big enough to, I didn't need the chief holding my hand. I'm going to meet with the commander. That meeting got moved to the 28th.
How long was that from the time that you made the complaint about the food? What was the time?
I made the complaint about her on the 14th. I made the complaint about the food officially in writing on the 23rd.
Okay, so let me run this back. Initially, you were complaining about Dale Turner and Dale Turner's inability to carry out his job and his duties.
Absolutely.
And you had multiple times reported it to Velasquez. Is that his name? No.
Chelsea Woolham was my commander. I reported it to her. She was aware of it along with a few other of the previous supervisors.
And so then you went over her and then went to Maria.
Yes, Margarita.
Margarita. And so Margarita said, oh, this is very interesting because the report that I've been getting back is that you are the issue.
Absolutely. You're spot on.
And so now what I think will be productive is that if all of us sit down, hash this out, but this is all prior to you find out about the food. Now you then find out about the food the next day.
Literally the next day, my sergeant comes in with the bread. And so now I'm looking at the bread. So in the time that I see the bread, I ask the questions of my sergeant. I then have Turner respond to I didn't have him respond to my office. What I told him was you need to go up north and, you know, you need to go and do the legwork of finding out how this happened. He comes to my office instead and starts finger pointing because that's his norm. It's everybody else's fault but me. I decide that coupled with I'm not getting the backing of my commander, he is not cutting it in his position. Now I have molded bread. I package because I had already asked for an investigation with the commander at the end of August. I left that out. I'd sent her paperwork to request that she put him under investigation because he was not performing based on this 1.5 years of observation. She pretty much ignored that. And she didn't feel like it was something, I guess, that she wanted to go forward with. So now 2 weeks later, I meet with the chief. Now the next day I find out about the bread. I have him go up there, find out. He stops at my office instead and starts finger pointing. And I just say, I'm packaging it all up and I am officially requesting an investigation. And that is what I packaged. And I had that taken to the chief's office. In doing all of that, I spoke with the chief again and I asked her if we could go forward because she called me on October the 4th and she's asking questions. I got your package, this, I have some questions to ask. She said, I will meet with the two of you because by that time, I'm telling her this is not going anywhere. So even the meeting that now is moved from the 27th to the 28th, and now it's been moved to the October 5th. I said, I'm going to cancel the meeting tomorrow because I still haven't met with her. It's being delayed. And I'll wait until you tell me when we're all going to meet. She says, I'm going to find a date and I'll do it sooner rather than later. I have my secretary call my commander's office to cancel my meeting with her. The next day, I get called into the chief's office. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, I'm going to the chief's office to meet with them both. I get there, I sit in the lobby area, waiting area of the chief's office, and I see my supervisor, Woolham, going back and forth between two offices. I'm not thinking anything of it. And yes, I see her here because I'm thinking the three of us are about to sit and meet. My supervisor comes to me, she says, hey, can you go with me? And I said, sure, because I'm thinking now we're going to walk in to meet with the chief. She takes me into a different office and there's another commander sitting there. Mm.
Ambush.
Said, you're being placed under investigation and transferred immediately. You're to go home, you're on administrative leave, don't return back to your unit. And there was no paperwork. There was nothing that she was able to, thoroughly kind of map out for reasons why. And I was just kind of like, wow. I said, I was meeting with the chief. Well, I don't know anything about that. So I let her know I'm going to still go down to the chief's office and I left.
Were you demoted? And well, let me before that, did you have any conversation with the chief when you said I'm going to go speak with her?
Yes, I went and actually met with her, just the two of us. And that's when I asked, where is this coming from? Why am I being placed under investigation? And she says, you know that I can't speak to you about an investigation. But the key point for me was that she said, you've given me plenty of documentation. And I think you're going to be fine in this. And I went, okay, so if someone's alleged something, I can't say that she's not going to open an investigation. But in my head, I'm going, this isn't coming from you. Mm-hmm. So I asked that question. She didn't deny it or confirm it, but she just sat looking at me almost like, Sidra, you document very well. You're going to be fine. And she repeated that a couple times. And I finally just said, wow. So this is not coming from you because the chief has to be the one to sign off on an investigation in the first place.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Ark Republic. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, you can actually keep this mothership going. How? You can make a tax-deductible donation in several ways. One, Cash App us at Ark Republic Media. And you can also go on our website, arkrepublic.com/donate. As well, you can also donate to our fiscal sponsor and our sister organization at Black Farmers Index, that is Cash App, or also go onto their website, blackfarmersindex.com. We are two Black women-owned media organizations who share our profits so folk can thrive.
So I have a quick question. Sorry, I want to jump in real quick. I have a quick question. So we've talked to a few different officers who have had similar instances where they decided to be whistleblowers, and this has been the cause of action, right? Where they go into putting you under investigation and selling in your name and even going forth to either demote you or get you terminated. I just have a question, because this seems to work so well. Why hasn't there been anything put in place to stop officers of higher ranks been able to use this as an apparatus of corruption? Because I'm starting to see it so much. It's a pattern. Like literally seems like it's the thing that everybody knows to do. If you're about to get in trouble, put them under investigation first and, you know, go into chair. So why do you think that this is so common and there's no apparatus to kind of stop this lack of accountability?
I think because of what I call, and I shouldn't call it this, but like the Bermuda Triangle. At the level of captain and above, there's a whole lot of people just wanting to, you know, I got to get that next promotion. If I don't make a wave, I might be the next one in that next seat. There's no test to get there. So I got to be friends with somebody that's friends with somebody that's friends, and then I've got a chance in that position. I believe because there's so many people silent in those sections because it's all about me at that point, but that's at the top of our department. That's the crust of our supervision and our management at the very top. I had never experienced anything like this, but I do remember calling to get some advice and, you know, maybe I should call the union or I to call this unit and get some advice. And surprisingly, those folks were aware. I even had one individual tell me, oh, yeah, your husband's running for sheriff, so they're coming for you. These are in entities where they are in some level of oversight or union connected, that type of thing. And I'm floored because I'm like, where do you go with that if you have confirmation that it's coming higher than where it would normally be coming from? And you have a history from 18 years ago with an individual who then on national television lies on your husband to discredit him. Because one piece I have to throw out there, and this is in no way a plug for my husband, because anybody would know, of course, I would want him in that seat. However, Eric is the only candidate that doesn't have a soiled, sullied past that the current sheriff can then use against in a runoff.
So he doesn't have write-ups for misconduct, corruption. He hasn't gone to jail. He hasn't been to what they call an inking party or any of that. Is there? Okay. That's definitely good to know. This is a sidebar. Are there any Black deputy gangs in the sheriff's department?
I've heard that there was one, but I honestly don't have anything to confirm that.
Okay.
I would be lying to you if I told you I've never seen tattoos on legs if people come in shorts. Mm-hmm. I would be lying to you to say I'm not aware of it, that it happens. I'm just not accepted into that arena. And honestly, in all fairness to myself, what is my mission for the day? Mm-hmm. And I have found that my work, which I will work much longer than I need to, and I want to do a project and I want to do something great, let's do this. And I'm fired up about my work. And that just doesn't seem like the space that LASD wants. So they don't want people that fired up and work.
They don't want people really doing work and bringing change to the community and having a good relationship with the community. Yes. Most definitely. Trust me. I've worked intimately with county sheriffs because I used to be a lifeguard at Campanella Park. I was a lifeguard for 11 years. And so, you know, you had to have a relationship with LA County sheriffs because this would be the first responders, you know, in those kind of capacities. So I do know the plethora of programs that come out, you know, in the community. Back to your story, however, once you have this meeting and where are you transferred and were you demoted?
Technically, my rank is lieutenant. As I explained before, I'm sitting in a seat that is normally slated for a captain. So I'm doing the work of a captain and I'm a unit commander. The position they then transferred me to stripped me of $30 million budget, large personnel that I was supervising, 65 locations all over the county. So my responsibilities went from this to that. And I'm, for the most part, probably supervising, if that, a few other sergeants, maybe. But it's a backward move because it's very well known, a unit commander position compared to one of these positions you put me in, it messes up your resume. Anybody seeing that's going to know, like, why did you get moved from a unit commander position to go over there?
That's when you say resume, are in terms of if you want to leave and pursue something else in law enforcement, or
if I want to promote, if I want to be in competitive market for these, because remember I said there's no test for captain and above, which would be my next step. So my resume, or either hard work or somebody that you're friends with.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the hard work, I explained to you, is just not enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you're too hardworking and heaven forbid you have a brain, to me, this is my own personal feelings, you may ask too many questions. So we need to make sure we don't, like she's too vocal, or she wants to do all those programs and projects. I'm creating work for people. So when I say my resume, if I wanted to go forward, anyone internally, higher ranking, that saw that I moved from a unit commander position back to, in essence, a line position, they would know that it was connected to some incompetence, some kind of write-up, some kind of investigation. Something went on that I did that caused me to be put in that position. So in your word of demotion, not technically, but yes, damage to my career, massive damage.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry about that. Where is the investigation now?
It's in review stage. I don't know exactly. They don't tell you every step of the way. There's a year statute date. So I would have wagered a bet, maybe they'll be wrapping it up at least before the end of the day that I knew. Interestingly enough.
One more time. So this was in August that this took place of 2021?
No, I was placed under investigation in October.
October.
But the paperwork shows August. So
Okay.
whatever I did in August, kind of like Eric running away from that school. I did it in August, but I stayed there for 2 more months to do whatever craziness that I was doing. And then I got placed under investigation.
So exactly what are they saying that you are under investigation for?
I never got an exactly. I got the names and the titles of violations.
Okay.
I didn't get pretty much specifics about it.
And the violations being what?
Conduct toward other people, obedience to laws, rules, and regs, some generalized topics.
Okay. Have you, since then, has anyone indicated to you, or you've experienced something related to your investigation or your complaint while in the department since then? When
you say, have I,
has somebody mentioned your investigation, or you've been subjected to some type of, I don't know if I necessarily say harassment, or some type of behavior that was connected to this issue of you complaining or leaving, right?
No, not for my investigation, but I actually had some things from my office come up missing, 2 red books and my journal that I've yet to hear anything more about. I reported that, and that came later, but no one other than me being interviewed for the investigation as a subject in the investigation. No, I haven't spoken to anyone about my investigation.
How does this go? Do you obtain a union representative, a counsel, an in-house counsel? What does this look like?
Well, for me, I'm suing because of everything that came along with this, the reporting in September, mid-September, and then being placed under investigation in October.
Mm-hmm.
So under normal circumstances, yes, I would be allowed to have a rep of my choice pretty much. And I could have some go in and sit in with me when I'm being questioned. But in my case, I have actually filed a lawsuit.
Okay. This is your case, even though it's a different situation, but it's a different scenario from the other, how do I want to call it, the list of whistleblowers that are talking about this specific incident where a deputy knelt on somebody that was being detained, in the way in which it was reported, and how Villanueva reacted and covered it up. It's a different situation, but there were a lot of similarities: transferred, being demoted, being called, or leaving and having this baggage of being a difficult employee. Have any of the other whistleblowers reached out to you in regards to that case?
No.
Do you think they ever will?
I don't see them reaching out to me because I'm not involved in that particular case.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see that happening too, because of my experiences with a few of them. I just don't, 2 of them I don't know very well. I'm not familiar with them. You got to understand, you got 10,000 sworn people, so we don't all know, you don't know everybody.
Right.
So you don't know their career path or anything of that nature. But I don't see, I'll say this. I don't see two of the people that I know reaching out to me in particular because of any type of passing we've had in our career.
Okay. The reason why I asked that is because this is an outsider looking in. The culture, the police culture, especially in this heightened Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter conversation, they talk about the blue veil and they talk about the secret, the silence, and within the department, it's such closed communication. This is, to me, very unusual for the amount of officers to come forward and talk about what's going on in the largest police, one of the areas with the largest police department in the country. So that's why I'm asking, because there's fear in the Oversight Commission. There were people talked about their families being harassed, fear of bodily harm, fear of being fired, fear of some other things, right? Mm-hmm. I am trying to understand how do you navigate this by yourself? I know you have your husband, right? How do you navigate? Maybe perhaps the question I'm asking, have other deputy folk come to you in support of you and what's going on? Okay.
I've had plenty. I received a message yesterday from someone who worked with my supervisor previously, and it was, yet again, I get it. I remember when I worked with this person back at this location. I've had other people reach out. We're in support of you. We know your work. We know how you are as a person. I think I navigated because, like you said, there's this veil. That veil doesn't cover all officers. I'm speaking to the tune of all the officers that are not the ones that are in the headlines that are annoying, that are not the ones out doing people wrong. And there are plenty of them. We get lumped all together though. And that doesn't mean that because those things are happening that everybody subscribes to that. And I'll give you an example. If I show up to a certain call or I walk into a module, ICO, anywhere where there's already something happening, 9 times out of 10 people know who I am. And they say she's not about that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to see what the people who are in that veil group that you're speaking of, I'm not going to be included in that because they're going to know, hey, Sidra's one of those ones that she's not tolerating that. I've worked at 10 locations on this department, 10 different locations. A couple of them I've doubled back to. Of the 10, I've reported something at 6. So this is not my first rodeo reporting something. It's my first time going public because guess what? My husband's in the public with the campaign, and I am wholeheartedly knowing that is directly connected. And because of that, you're hearing from, so it's a shock, and I do get it. You've got all these people coming forward of those 5 or, whoever's connected to the force incident. This is not my first time complaining about something. I actually blew the whistle some years back, and on the heels of that, 8 different people came forward. I wouldn't learn of that until they interviewed me because of someone's civil service hearing. And that person,
what was the incident 8 years ago?
No, 8 people. 8 people came forward.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Since
that actual incident. But the short version of that, it was basically this particular supervisor liked to yell at people. And I can take directions and you can explain to me, but there's something about somebody yelling at me and I have nerve to say that when I was a drill instructor yelling at other folks, but that was a job. It was something that I was required to do. But I literally had it because people would come to me, they would complain about this person. I'd have to call the unit that takes those type of complaints. I'd have to, because you're a mandated reporter, I would report it and I'd move on. And after a while that gets draining. So then that particular person they one day yelled at me. I said, hey, don't yell at me. Mm-hmm. That's what we're not gonna do. You can actually tell me what you need me to know. And you're my supervisor, I get it, but don't yell at me. It happened 2 more times. By that 3rd time, it was like a 3rd strike. I'm not wanting to play anymore. It was also on the heels of me being asked to change some paperwork on a report, and I would not do it. So then it went up to the commander level, and the commander told me,
was the report in regards to an arrest or was internal?
A force incident within the custody, within a jail. And when I told the commander, because now it goes from my captain, now it goes up to commander, because now she's going to direct me to change it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I was told back then, you need to decide what hill you want to die on. I touched my collar where I have my bar as a lieutenant. I said, I guess I will die here, because remember I told you, there are no tests for captain. So in essence, I took that as a threat, like you're going to mess up your career if you don't go along with this. So when you ask the question of how is it able to happen, and I think Dame asked that, how are they able to get away with this? If they're in that little circle of, I have a job based on the fact that I've been gifted, and if I do well in this, I'll be gifted the next bump and the next bump and the next bump. That's how that happens. Because the accountability and focus is on deputy gangs. Accountability and focus is on the corruption. And the underlying problem is internally, we need to fix LASD. If LASD is fixed on the inside, it's going to fix what's happening once we step out of those buildings. The messaging is not there, because someone like me going into a unit and saying, I want to make it better, but it's been infectious for decades. The same person that told me in that message yesterday, she said that unit used to get complaints left and right. And there was a lot of incompetence at that unit.
The food services unit. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I know 2 people that worked at what's called the intake specialist unit, where when there's a complaint made and it falls within the 12 factors, that unit is called. I have since had 2 people reach out to me that used to work at that unit, and they said there were nothing but complaints. They would come in the morning, it's like, okay, where's the food services pile? And there was some level of incompetence there. And I'm thinking, so I go in and I want to change things drastically, because I'm trying to see, okay, how do we make it better? This one particular supervisor says, well, we're the redheaded stepchildren of the food services unit. Okay, well, how do you make yourself not be a redheaded stepchild? Let's do this. Let's do this project. And we were doing them, and it was successful and it was happening, but it was too much for people that wanted to sit back and do nothing.
So, I talked about that. I mean, that's just a classic issue when you come to those government jobs where you unionize, you have your salary, you're just looking at your retirement, and you're kind of justifying it and saying, oh, the population at our service are not deserving, maybe perhaps. That was me putting it on there. But, that's even me working in social services, too, as well. Question, with the rotten food and the complaints, has there been complaints of illnesses and sicknesses from the inmates connected to the bad food?
I didn't even get that far, because I didn't get a chance to dig deeper, and technically it should not have been coming from me. One thing I can add, when you ask me, do I feel like there was a difference? I feel for the unit commander position, I was treated differently as a result of me being hardworking. Instead of me throwing my hands up and saying, hey, I can't deal with this guy, what are you guys going to do? I had the heart piece to go, okay, well, he's promoted a couple of levels up. He wasn't that good at what he was doing in the first place, so let me help him out. And there's a lot to be said for people with a bunch of degrees and what they can say, and I can look pretty and I can stand up and tout all this stuff I'm good at. And that was him. And, fool me once, fool me twice. I was so happy that I had my own supervisor, the one that brought me there. I had her included in the interview process, because I said, I don't want to make this selection. I'm new to food services. I don't really know everybody. Can you help? She didn't want to either. So she had San Bernardino come in and sit on the panel. So we did all the vetting we could to get this position. And he came out, because I have this paper and I've worked here at probation for these years, not knowing about 2 incidents back at probation that you similar spoil food type things. I wouldn't learn that until now. So he was selected for the position, but I had the understanding there's a gap there of his learning. So the place he even came from was nothing near the responsibility at LASD. So in my efforts to try to help, I'm like, okay, I need to extend his probation. No, we can't do that. Okay, I'm gonna put him on a 3-month program, and every week I'm gonna sit with him and go, we're gonna tackle a little bit at a time. That didn't work. Okay, then I'm gonna scale back your responsibilities half, and other people will take pieces of what you do, and including me, and we'll work with just this small amount. That didn't work. I mean, I don't know any unit commander in my entire career that I've ever known that would break something down that low and do all the other successes. And because I was so hardworking, I became like one of the workers. So the respect of a unit commander was not there, and it may not have been there. And this is not, remember I told you that race card, I'm not pulling anything that I was born looking like this.
Right. I mean, you know, I honestly, I would say as a Black woman, there is somewhere, somehow in your line of work, even my line of work, I have to stop people. You know, me being a professor, like, I'm not the mammy, I'm not the maid, I'm not the housekeeper. And somehow this, oh no, I never thought about you like that, right? But I'm always the one who's about getting things done and correcting things and moving forward in progress, right? So it's like I'm the street sweeper, I'm the cleaner, you know. So that's what I hear. Well, what you were talking about. I have a question, and I want to move on the other side of what does in your opinion, a productive, efficient LA County Sheriff looks like to you in the future. But before we go there is two questions. You said something very interesting, and it was about how much the county spends per day on food for inmates, and you were trying to get that changed.
What happened is when I came to food services, there was this pride in having spent only $2.86 per day for 3 meals per inmate. So each inmate, $2.86 fed them for the day. That was a pride. Now, that number sounds low until you know about mass bulk. You don't understand. You're feeding 17, 18,000 people.
Yeah,
so
you buy
companies, those companies, they're going to have milk this week and the next week and the next week. So the companies are like, yeah, we have wholesale pricing that measures up, and we have a unit that decides which company we directly vendor from. It was this pride in $2.86. But there was a program that I wanted to start. I was sitting and thinking one day, how do we do something as a support system to the deputies on the line? Wow. Well, I guess we could have better food, so then they eat and they go to sleep and they're not disturbing and fighting or whatever. And that's literally almost like that joking mindset. But in addition to that, I tasted the food. I remember the managers coming in and giving me little samples. Well, ma'am, this is the thing we're going to change to. And I would taste it and I'd throw it in the trash. And they were laughing at me that day because I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat that. I don't know where that one goes. And they're like, man, we can't get rid of all. Yes, we can. If we look at the vendors, what options we have, do the scaling, calculating how much we can spend, wiggle room, wherever we are. Yes, we can change the food. We did a pilot program in March of 2019 with MCJ, and we did some changes to the food, and we did a survey.
What's MCJ?
In Central Jail, the main jail downtown, the oldest one.
That's Twin Towers.
No, Twin Towers is across the street. Men's Central Jail is the one on the north side of the street. Twin Towers is on the south side, but they're on the same O'Shea Street.
Okay.
We did a survey with the inmates, and they came back with favorable comments about this new change. And then we were baby stepping it, changing one thing at a time. At one point, we had a inmate they were spending $15 per meal per day. So that was $45 per day for this one inmate at Avalon, on Catalina Island. That's our Avalon station. The way it was presented to me, and this speaks back to where I was saying, as a unit commander, I didn't get what most did. Well, Sidra, this needs to change. How long y'all been spending $45 a day for this one inmate? I don't have a problem changing it, fixing it, but please don't present it to me like, okay, oh my gosh, what did you do? Go fix this. So we were able to get with the boats that are shipped over there and, find a time when we can put crates and the frozen foods and the meals and the things that could be warmed up. Long story short, we were able to include that station now in the regular process like all the other inmates. Instead of buying 3 meals from the hospital at $45 total a day, $45 compared to now, I think we're at $3.15 per inmate once we change the food. So the difference from $2.86 to $3.15 or $3.10 still netted positive food. And my idea was we can still keep going in that direction. But $45 a day would mean that I would need a $255 million budget for the amount of inmates. I only had a $30 million budget. But somewhere in the mix, that got lost. Like, how do you not know that? There was another time when they came and they said, Sidra, your overtime's not being calculated properly. Okay, well, I have someone that does that, but it was always Sidra, what this is wrong. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but hand it to me. So let me go and investigate it and see. And I have staff that they do this type of thing. Well, lo and behold, my secretary, well, I just report the ones that they give me. So you got 8 other locations out there in the field and you're not reporting their overtime. How are they even getting paid? I did the overtime ticket myself because I was a training and scheduling sergeant at one point in my career. I said, I know the system, how to enter it. So I had everybody send me personally, me. So I'm adding to my own work, but okay, I understand they don't get it. This is a sorely mismanaged unit. Let me figure it out. I start entering the overtime where she was probably reporting $4,000 a month. We were spending about 50.
Wow, in overtime.
Yes. But how does anybody not know that? And how is that presented as, hey, Sidra, we have a problem. Houston, right. We have a problem.
That's a labor dispute. That's a very serious issue, underreporting time.
Well, yeah, the underreporting, they're getting paid, but here's the problem. It speaks to how much are we really knowing what's in our budget. So imagine you're me and you know that, and you hear on national television from the podium that we're so underfunded. Here is my take. If I have $5 a week for my allowance, and I go to my dad and I want $2 more, and he says, well, what do you need the $2 for? What are you spending the $5 on? Well, I don't know, but I don't have any money more. I want $2 more. That's what this is. Where is this? Where's the 5 going?
Mm-hmm.
And if there is some kind of mismanagement of the funds at my level, I'm not the only unit. That's half. Food services is connected to half of our department, so to speak, the custody side of operations, because we're feeding the inmates. Well, that's the bulk of, that whole thing with food services. If I'm having issues with the budget and all of a sudden this overtime that was just this is not good, but there was never any reconnection back to me. Okay, now we're on a better track. Let's do a reporting. Let's do an investigation. Let's find out what happened. Good, you're reporting it right now. I'm still wondering where the other $45,000 was coming from every month. So how are we asking for more money? That's my take on it. So when you ask the question, what would it take to revamp, to change, to fix on a larger scale for LASD? I've already done that at food services. I went from, we're just feeding a slop tray to inmates, to opening a cafe, to promoting 71 people, hiring over 60 people, promoting a group to a new job assignment that didn't even exist, but we applied for it and we got it through HR and it was granted. Those are systematic changes that, even though it's a much smaller scale, I had never been a unit commander, didn't get any training. No one told me this is exactly how you do it. It takes somebody willing to go the extra mile. And most people in our world and in society are not willing to go that extra mile.
But how does that apply to the racism and sexism that is virulent in the department? Like, that's just operational stuff, right? But how does that change a racist, you know what I'm saying, or a sexist person?
The idea of changing someone who is racist is impossible. Here's what we need to do. We're wanting to change a racist, when in actuality, you don't know what I'm thinking right as I'm sitting here with you. It's the behavior tolerated with that uniform.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you come to work and you're racist, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I really don't care what you think, and don't let it transfer into that traffic stop. Don't mistreat that person that you come in contact with, because I don't know what you're really thinking anyway. But your actions are problematic when you bring that into your job. It's like people saying politely when someone walks into Starbucks and I hear them, welcome to Starbucks. Like it's this, and that person could hate me walking through the door being a Black woman. They can hate Black people, period, but on their job, hey, welcome to Starbucks. What can I get started for you? I don't think that you change the races. You change the behavior that's been tolerated.
Mm-hmm.
You stop allowing people to do wrong and you smooth it over. And yeah, well, you know what? But, you know, the deputies, I got to have their back. If you have their back, you will hold them accountable. You will not let them do stupid stuff that then, okay, you okay this stupid, so I'm gonna do another stupid. Oh, hey, yeah, the sergeant take care of it. So I don't know that you change them from a racist mindset. You change that you don't tolerate their behavior, because you never really know what someone is thinking. The doors at the Museum of Tolerance, everybody runs to the non-prejudice door and is stuck. You can't get out of it, because we all have some type of prejudices, all of us. We all carry them. But you don't let it come out in your job. And for decades, that's what's been happening. In my time frame, I can only speak to the time that I have been here. Am I accepted with the way that I look in uniform? I don't think so. Is there a problem with me being a woman and being a Black woman and being in that position? I believe absolutely wholeheartedly. Because it can't be my work, Kaya. I've already proven what I'm capable of. So if it's not my work, what else could it be? And in this case, it's something from the past that's being drudged up again that is underlying in racism, because Alex felt like Latinos were being mistreated, particularly himself. And he went pendulum swing. I'm going to make sure that's what I hired. That's who I have in key positions. I'm not going to promote anything else but that, because I'm going to right that wrong from 18 years ago. Because the same time frame of what happened with Eric and I is the same time frame of his lawsuit.
Interesting. Yeah, I would have to say, I would push back on, in terms of, definitely you cannot change anyone. It's an internal process. That's a conscientious decision that you make to grow in whatever direction that is. I guess my concern is that when you have these people, and when you have a system that supports, I think this is what I hear you saying is that change, you can't change the person, but you can change the system in which they work. So it doesn't embolden them and empower them to carry out these actions within what it is they're doing. I think that's what it is I hear.
Well, I can tell you this, I get people talking about politics a lot. Like everything is the other side of the aisle or this or that or whatever. At work, I was raised this way. Religion and politics, you don't bring them into the work world. And I mean, I carry my faith and I don't feel ashamed about my faith. But I don't inundate people with that. And when people come to me with a politic talk, they usually get me just staring until they switch the subject. If I don't give life to it and I don't allow you to do these groupings and the tattoos and the gang mentality, and how in the world do we point at gangsters on the street and then you wear a uniform and you want to be connected to something like that? I'll go one better. Alex said in that interview with Gustavo Arellano that young black men are killing young black men. The names during that COC hearing didn't sound anything other than his Latino guys.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that stood up and said that their family member had been harmed
were Latino.
They were also Latino.
Yeah.
So my question, Alex, is if it's black on black crime and they're on the streets and they're killing each other, and I'm not condoning that because I think that hurts me to my core. But now you have an officer of the same race. What do you do about Latino and Latino crime? And one of them has a gun and an ability to take someone's life within a second. What would be your response to that? Because I didn't hear in that COC meeting anything other than, you know,
Latino,
that's all that was there.
The banditos, the executioners. I have the whole list. It was very eye-opening.
Yes.
Which in my opinion, it for the first time, I would say in public conversation, it really highlights the breakdown of the hierarchy that exists in the Latino community, because it's always presented on the outside as this very not homogenous, but everybody falls in line, stays on code, helps each other out, so on and so forth. So this is for me, the first time you get this, there's, this breakdown of how it goes. And I can say even my experience is working as an LA County employee, when what you were talking about is that how those internal biases play out in hiring and promotional practices, because that's what happened, me as a lifeguard in the area that I was in, it was once predominantly African-American, we're talking about that time, Will Rogers Park, now Tim Watkins, and Bethune-Cookman and Campanella and, all of those, Jesse Owens, which was Sportsman Park. All of these.
All the ones that I ran through in
Yes.
all of my parks.
I'm naming the names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we might have crossed paths, but it was predominantly African Americans who, in this section, that actually, it's not even opinion, it's fact, who spearheaded the aquaculture, the aquatics recreational culture that you have in these areas, but then get pushed out systematically over the years and are replaced and create these really interesting divisions in terms of between the Black and the Latino community, to the point then when you have predominantly Latino staff and everything, then you see how there's this ranking system that unbeknownst to you. So let's talk about I have another question in terms of what does a better LA County Sheriff's Department looks like for women?
I think we need to make it, I think that sadly enough, to keep going back to the deputy gangs and that mentality and that mindset and that hierarchy that you're speaking of, it needs to be something that women actually desire to want to do. I mean, who signs up? And you keep asking me, how did you navigate that? Like, who signs up to get mistreated? And I'm not saying that all women are mistreated, but let's just know that is a male-dominated field, period. Most rooms I walk into, I may get a head nod here or there, but I'm there for whatever purpose I'm there for. For women, it's getting them engaged in the process and wanting to be a part of something that is for the original purpose of, or a mission for doing the right thing. Protect and serve, slapped on the side of a car, this whole community police thing and all these terms, they mean absolutely zilch if they're not being enacted properly. If most of our time is spent on people that want to join into gang mentality and do things wrong, those folks need to go. So when you say, what does a better LASD look like? It looks like keep your racist mindset, whatever you got in your mind, whatever you like, whatever is your choice, that's yours to do. But when you're wearing this uniform, you have a certain way that you should carry yourself. And we are the ones that are paid professionals, not the people on the street. And you're sucking the life out of the department if all we ever hear about are deputy gangs. And then to have our sheriffs say, without a doubt, that they don't exist. It said that he was just never accepted into that world. So what does that look like to me? It looks like now I'm in charge. So that's who I'm going to. I never got in that door. Now I can get in there because I'm the head guy.
Mm-hmm.
A better Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department would be one where this cronyism, nepotism stops, where somebody with some ingenuity, some initiative, wanting to do something better is not stifled because it creates too much work for other people. It's a place where supervisors like mine aren't closely connected to someone so high up that they can half come to work and show up when they want to. And I have facials or hair appointments and I don't know which one I want to do today. That's what a better Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department looks like. Ooh. And it's just wiping out because the behavior is foul. And again, I go back to, I don't know, and I can't look at somebody and I have a meter and go, you're a racist. There's no way for me to ever know that. But your behavior eventually, I've seen in some of these forums where certain things are said and you could see it in the body language of the candidates like, I don't really want to answer that question. We went to an NAACP forum not too long ago.
You and your husband, Eric.
Yes, and he was involved in an NAACP forum where they're all on a stage at a church. And the host said, I'm just letting y'all know, these questions are going to be about Black folks. We're not going to be offended by you using the term Black folks because that's the questions we're going to be asking. One particular candidate, you could almost see it in the body language, eventually couldn't contain it, and answered the question and was almost like pointing at the host. And sadly enough, people would look at that and go, wow, he's getting people told. They look at Alex like that. He's not tolerating what the board of supervisors are throwing out. And people actually think that's okay. Now, I'm not telling the man to change his mindset. You can hate Black people all you want to. Don't come to LASD and let that stuff play out in your work. I don't even need to know what you're thinking. What I need to know is that you're doing the job that's for the benefit of the citizens and the residents of Los Angeles, of which I am one. And it is until we change that, I honestly believe we're going to remain stuck.
Mm.
We really are. But I can rest assured that the time that I have been involved in it, maybe I don't know how many incidents I stopped just by walking up.
Mm-hmm.
And no, we don't do this in front of Sherrod. I may have stopped something and you never know. I didn't even know it was coming. And I wish I could implore to people who look like me, we need you in that process so that you are learning. And then you get some officers that are in the neighborhoods that look like, those kids get to see, wow, that's somebody that I would really want to do that. Something I get on the street and something that other officers can attest to. Hey, you see that officer over there? If you don't stop acting up, I'm gonna have her put handcuffs on you. Why would you tell a kid that? And I'm standing there like, please don't tell your child that. Let me talk to them, because when something goes south, I want them to run to me. I want to be able to help them. But if that veil that you spoke of overshadows any positives that officers ever do, we're forever going to be pigs, the blue line, y'all hiding stuff, everybody, and we get lumped in. And someone looking like me, I get lumped into both sides of that.
Right. And you know what I wanted to say before we go on? There are white deputy gangs now. We got to include those. It's not.
Oh yeah. No, most definitely.
Yeah, they're rampant too. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was speaking. Yeah, I know.
I was speaking specifically to
the Oversight Commission. No. Yeah.
And it was the last. Yeah, the last names were, I was using that as an example, the last names of those they were highlighting.
Oh, yeah.
I was using that in comparison to Alex saying young Black men are killing each other and that has nothing to do with law enforcement. Yeah, it does, because it's a crime. And that absolutely has something to do with law enforcement. But I would ask him and I'd throw that question back about what we just heard in that COC. But no, yeah. I wasn't saying that they don't exist.
No, I know. No, I know. I wanted to add that too as well.
Perfect.
Just as a side note for people who are listening and don't know the layout of the land in LA and even just California, because these deputy gangs are throughout California.
And you came up out of your chair a little bit. I was sliding back like, okay, don't hit me. Don't hit me.
No, you know what? No, I'm on a pillow because I'm short and I'm sinking. So I have to.
Oh, I love it. I'm totally joking with you.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I do sometimes, yeah. But no, not for you. I thank you so much for this conversation. I know we will be thinking again as we are moving towards what it is, June 1st. Oh my, next
June
week.
7th.
June 7th.
If you're thinking about the election, it's June 7th.
Yes, the elections for LA County Sheriff next Tuesday. What's the energy? How are you reading the energy around particularly the race that your husband is in, Eric Strong?
Everybody wants the current sheriff out. And there's a field of 8 different people, but I will speak again to what I said, and this is Sidra's opinion. Eric's the one that doesn't have any discipline in his background. So it's not going to be one of these, oh, I'm in a runoff with this candidate and I got some dirt on that person. So that I'm gonna undercut them halfway through to November. Eric's the one candidate that he doesn't have any dirt on. There may be a couple others that don't, but the ones that are supposedly contenders that have those titles, because titles is the biggest thing, that's the name of the game, he could take them out of the game and win this election if one of them was in the runoff with him. But you got to see, it's 8 different people that are in this trying to unseat him. Eric's momentum is growing. I'm proud to say I've been able to meet Stevie Wonder, who has endorsed him. And that I was like a little kid, like, oh my goodness, this guy I heard from the crib. So the momentum has been really good for him individually in this race. I don't really watch the other folks as much. Because I like to hear stuff that is positive and that I know can happen. It's hard for me to listen to them with the same ears that you do.
Right. And
knowing what I know. So it's hard for me to even hear some of it. So I'm usually quiet most days, even at the forums. I try to be. Yes.
Well, I wish Mr. Strong all the best in his election. I thank you for talking to me. Last thoughts are always to my guests. Any last thoughts as we wrap up?
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for having me. And most importantly, thank you for being open enough to listen. I think that people need to know the truth. And I say, Isaiah 6:8, here I am, Lord, send me. It's not fun. It is probably one of the most taxing and draining things that I've ever done. But I'm not going to accept a lie of who I really am. And I've worked too hard in my career to just let that happen. So I thank both you and I'm gonna call him Mr. Crawford for having me
Wherever he is.
for having me on your show. I appreciate you allowing this safe space, which I'm sure I'll get the comments and people will have their negatives, but I've yet to have someone actually reach out and ask me my side of it. And you wouldn't get it if it was just in news clippings. So you've allowed me a time to speak rather than just the propaganda and the headlines and the whistleblower that, quite honestly, everybody forgot about the whistleblower from November of last year. That's old news.
Yeah, because it's not sexy enough. You know, it's not, ooh, it's not, yeah. Well, and also this is, I mean, I've been in media for 30 years. If it's a package that's not presented in a way in which they feel is newsworthy, you know, on to the next one. But I'm glad I'm glad Ark Republic was a space for you to tell your full story and the nuances of it, because we often leave those out. And those are to me, are the pivotal and critical moments that kind of define the whole circumstance. I thank you so much.
And that is the answer to your last question. We do have to get into those nuances and in the weeds about the real issue, not the headlines. Once we do that, we will be better, not just as LASD, but as a society.
From your lips to God's ears. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Sidra Sherrod-Strong, for speaking with Ark Republic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.